how it's done is probably part of the problem, not so much what was done, it's how it was done.
Of course, yeah.
But what I would, just one point before I go, because I know I'm probably going to either end my conversation, is that I'm a bit disappointed with the actual BBC. They're talking about this particular topic, which is fine, but there was the actual children dying over in Palestine for the past few days, and it wasn't even publicised on the BBC at all, which I'm very, very disappointed with.
Well, that's not true. It's been in all the news bulletins, and we've talked. Of course, it has. You're absolutely.
The BBC have been very quiet about it.
Wait a minute. You must be kidding me. Do you not see any of Jeremy Bowen's reports from Gaza on the news at 10? You've got to, Rab. I'm sorry, Rab. You are so wide of the mark on this. It's ridiculous.
I'm not talking about the BBC Asian network, I'm talking about the BBC in general.
Jeremy Bowen on the news at 10 yesterday and the news at 10 before, on the day before, did extensive reports from Gaza.
News at 10, I'm talking about the general news, I'm talking about the general
Every news bulletin has carried numbers growing of how many Palestinian civilians have died. Every single one. It's absurd to say that.
I do like the BBC, but I was a bit ashamed of that, to be quite honest.
Well, I'm sorry, Rab, but what you're saying is actually ridiculous.
Nihal.
I'm saying that you're completely wrong. You couldn't be more wrong.
Nihal, thousands of people that have been sending a message around are not completely wrong, Nihal.
Well, this whole boycott BBC is biased. I mean, look at the reports. Weirdly enough, Rab, I got into a Twitter conversation yesterday with someone after I said how real Jeremy Bowen's reports were by people who were saying that Jeremy Bowen is anti-Semitic and is anti-Israel. So you can see, as someone who hosts a phone-in show, how hard it is at the BBC. We're constantly told we're anti-Israel, then we're anti-Palestine. It's a constant thing, which means that if both sides are saying that we're anti-them, then we must be doing something right, because we're in the middle.
I mean, I can say the same thing about, the BBC is anti-Islam, but they're always talking about Islam. But we're not.
Well, Islam is in the news. Do you expect us to ignore it just because you don't like it?
Well, look, Nihal, you know how long I've been on the BBC Asian Network? For many, many years, well before you even took over this show, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I've always took part in talks, and it's always been about Islam. Quite, I would say, a good 75% of the topics.
You have no way of proving that. Look through all the... Wait a minute, just... Rab, go through all the previous shows, do the research for the previous year, and then come back with a statistic.
I do listen to it daily, Nihal.
No, I'm asking you statistically, not your impression, not your perception, but the facts.
Every other show is about Islam, which is fair enough, because we are in the media, which is fair enough.
This story, by the way...
The negative side as well, then, of what's happening to people in Israel. And people
we give... Rab, the BBC Asian Network, unlike so many other places, as you well know, because you've said it to me before in the past, we give people a chance to get both sides across, whereas some people don't.
Well, I just would have thought it would have been one of your talking shows, because everybody's been talking about it, and I thought it would have been one of your...
We did, actually. We did actually.
Not the past few days. It's been really bad what's been happening over there.
Well, I suppose we have to see how it develops.
People would know what's going on in the world.
Rab, we have to see how it develops, and then we have to see what question that is relevant to ask you. Whereas the news on the BBC Asian Network has been very responsible, very balanced, and Asian Network Reports has been reporting constantly what has been going on. So I'm afraid I have to stick up for the BBC, and you may be sitting there going, well, of course you would. They pay you your wages. But I'm in the middle of this. I know exactly what it's like. I was having a similar discussion on Twitter yesterday with some people who were saying that the BBC was profoundly anti-Israel, at the same time as saying to people who were saying that the BBC was profoundly anti-Palestinian and what's going on in the Gaza. So that should yourself lead you to, think perhaps we are not catering for the needs of any one side, nor should we be, because that's not our job. Our job is to report the news. Some people perhaps don't like that. 81869 on the text, email nihal@bbc.co.uk. I mean, one thing's for certain, and we were discussing this after the show yesterday, is whether we should be having a debate over whether it is fair, balanced, or biased, the reporting of what goes on between Israel and the Palestinians. And I think that's a debate that we're looking into having. We're just trying to find out if we can get the right people, especially from here in the BBC, to be part of that debate. But it is something that we're talking about, don't worry. We love a bit of transparency here on this show, that's for certain. Right, 43 minutes past 10. Tell me,